A hero is not judged based on how he acts in times of triumph. Rather, he is judged based on his ability to weather the storm and deal with adversity. And when you look at how the first 11 years went for Marvel and the MCU, Kevin Feige had very little adversity to deal with. Every film felt like it had its own identity and was slowly building towards something special, and there was a clear outline for how everything was going to pan out, and the fans were there at every turn. Barring a couple mediocre movies, the trajectory for Marvel was seamlessly going up and up and up until the franchise reached its emotional peak with Infinity War and Endgame. Fast forward 6 years and the MCU is facing yet another critical and commercial failure in Captain America Brave New World, which by the way is one of the campest titles for a film that's trying to be a conspiracy thriller, but the thing that sets this film apart from the other failures of the post-Endgame era is that they gave this film every chance to try and make it work, and it still missed the mark. But we all know about the current state of the MCU and how it's been slowly declining since 2019, with films falling flat at the box office and this overall feeling that there's no plan in place for the future, causing everything to feel like an aimless stab in the dark, and not to mention countless post-credit scenes that seem to go absolutely nowhere. If you didn't know any better, you'd assume that Marvel changed its leadership team to a much worse group of people who have no idea about the business of superhero filmmaking. It's hard to believe that the same studio who went 11 years and 20-odd films with barely any blemishes are the same studio who have been making films like The Marvels, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Captain America Brave New World, Thor: Love and Thunder, The Eternals, and not to mention the countless Disney Plus shows that barely anyone watched. And so the MCU is in a position that clearly they're not familiar with now. And for the first time in their existence, they're having to face real adversity. And it's going to take a lot of work and talent behind the camera to gain back the trust of their audience. And look, who knows? For all I know, every film from now on could be an absolute smash for them. But when you look at the lengths they're going to try and do that, it doesn't give me much hope. Hiring the Russo brothers and bringing back Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and God knows who else for the next couple of films, when only until recently the MCU changed its tone on the subject of bringing back old characters that had previously died in the films. Kevin Feige always said that he would never do that, and he would never go to those lengths, he would never go to that well. I remember it was never in the MCU's plans to bring back the Russo brothers. They originally wanted to let the people who made Rick and Morty write the screenplays for the new Avengers films. Bringing back the Russo brothers was never something the MCU wanted to do. Let's be completely honest. And so all of this feels like a massive panic button line of decision making to try and pull every string and use every trick in the book to try and get themselves a win, even if that win is heavily relying on nostalgia. I personally find it hard to imagine the Russo brothers with full creative control making a bad superhero movie. They just understand the material so well, and especially when they're working with Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, the writers of the previous Avengers films and all 3 Cap films. But it does feel like this film has been fast-tracked into production. And when you consider how busy the Russo brothers have been over the last few years, and even recently they literally just finished making a film that's coming out on Netflix this month. And by the time they announced they'd be coming back last year, they would have been deep in production for said film. And not to mention all the post-production stuff that they have to do on a film like that. So the question is, how much time do they really have to make a film as big as the Avengers? And not just one of those films, but 2 of those films. It's a bit of a tall order, and it's another perfect example of the MCU stunt casting talent and crew that looks good in a headline, but is completely missing the point when it comes to what actually makes a good movie. It feels lazy, and it feels contrived, and it does just feel like a massive panic button mode. But regardless of all this, I'll be in the theatre watching, because if nothing else, I'm intrigued. And maybe that will be enough for them to turn a profit on this one. But will it be enough to fix the franchise as a whole? We will have to see.